right, so hopefully everybody had a chance to get a drink. We have this talk coming up, and then after that is going to be lunch right back down where you were. So, you know, spread out. Check out that weird vault thing they have going on in the back. Highly recommended. But yeah, I think this will be pretty cool. Certainly the artwork is nice. So coming up next, to continue our parade of very important people, we have the Chief Technical Officer at Cloudsmith, and I'll hand it over to Henrik.
Thank you. Is my mic on now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Then you can do the choir part over there. So, hi everyone. Here to talk about future approaches to working with modules. I'm sure we all share this vision of merrily having all our servers merrily humming along in our big server park and withstanding change and as we need to do things, and having all these puppets dance around. And as we start out, it's really easy. You just download Puppet, you read some examples, look at the documentation. Hey, this is really easy. I can use this. It's not hard at all. But then as you start making your puppets and carving things out, you realize there's a whole bunch of things, interesting things that you need to learn about. There's all the resources and the nodes and the manifests, and you can do types, and we just saw how you could do indirections and all sorts of interesting things. And it's actually quite complex underneath. So as we see all this complexity and we want to get things done, and we try to run our things, first attempts at running aren't always that successful. And as you're trying to figure out what's wrong, you're trying to test, and it's a bit brutal. It's trial and error and see what happens. And the error messages you get back aren't always all that helpful. So it's a little bit of a wall as you're starting out, I'd say. It looks easy, but then there could be more help. So I think that at this point, it's very natural to try to avoid complexity. The fewer things you have to hold in your head and the fewer levels of indirection through the code, even though the thing you only have to add is like a one-liner, but it might be like 11 steps away from your comfort zone with the resource you were specifying. It's very easy, and there's a tendency to just write a pile of files that gets the job done. And now you're done, and now you can start putting this into production. And thereby, you created simplicity. But it's a little bit too simple, perhaps. Just having one string. And in this position, you have a whole new set of problems that you have to deal with as you want to change and expand and things happen. And having written everything yourself, you're also responsible for everything yourself, because you're not using and utilizing what everyone else is contributing to the environment. So some of the best practices, good advice, is to use modules from the beginning. So I'd like to ask some questions. So how many of you use modules that you've downloaded from the Forge? Okay. 10. How many of you organize your own things in terms of modules? That's good. That's about a third of the audience. So the rest of you, you have a pile of files then. All right. Embarrassed laughter and no hands. Okay, I understand you. So using modules from the beginning is really important. Use version control. How many of you check things in to Git or SVN? That's maybe 2/3. It was more than half at least. That's also good. And then when you're doing this, I think it's good to stick to these sound design principles. Think in terms of reuse. You're writing something. This is something that will If it's not just a hack and you're testing something out, of course, go wild. But as you're going to maintain it, and someone after you is going to maintain it, and it's going to be part of the infrastructure for quite a long time, you have to think about how can this be reused when things change around it. There will be new versions of everything around this piece of code. So how should it be adapted, and how can I keep it clean? How can I do separation of concerns? How can I make it deal with only the thing that it really needs to deal with, and then separate out the rest of the logic? But dealing with things like these up front, as I said, that just looks like more complexity at the beginning. There's enough complexity to get started and doing things. You may not want to worry about these things. But to get a large system into production, I think you really should look into these things and how things should be organized. A good piece of advice, I think, is to organize in terms of specificity. That is, you get stuff from Puppet, then you have common, totally generic things working with, I don't know, lists or strings or printing things out or converting from one format to another, to very generic things, managing a particular type of resource, perhaps. Then that applied in your application on a particular site, particular instance, and so forth. And do not mix these. The tendency is to take and write everything into one single thing, and you get the pile of files. So if you want to organize things this way and using modules, what you now have is a different type of problem. If you had, well, let's call it, you had spaghetti before, it's pasta and tomato sauce. Now you have ravioli, it's still pasta and tomato sauce, but it's organized a different way. And the problems are different in organizing it, finding things, and understanding what you have. So, a lot about what files goes where, why are they there, what should I do with them, manage the dependencies between your raviolis, what works with what, and then of course, once I have these pieces, how do I collaborate with others, making them better over time, how do I share them within my organization, the private things, where we have our secret keys and stuff like that, should go outside, or code that I don't want to share, and how do I share it with the open source world, where I also get things back so we can collaborate. So we have this set of issues. And you might be confounded by why 4 black rabbits is carrying that thing to Pinocchio. And he also wonders, why am I supposed to do this strange thing? Isn't there an app for that? And there is. So I'm going to talk about the Geppetto project. What it is and why we created it and what does it do and how you get it and stuff like that. And I'm going to do a demo of that too. So primary purpose, flattening the learning curve, helping people starting out, understanding how things fit together, what they can do, and how Puppet works. And support the Puppet best practices and organizing things in a good way, and encourage sharing. I don't know if we managed to reach all the objectives yet, but I think we've done some really, really good and cool things in Geppetto to date. So what is Geppetto? So Geppetto is tooling. You get a Puppet manifest editor that understands the Puppet syntax. So it flags warnings and errors as you're typing, editing, and helps you write things correctly from the beginning. There's also a module metadata editor. How many of you are? There were not so many that have been using modules. How many know how modules work? All right, just about as many as use them, okay. So a module is like a directory structure with Puppet code. And in addition to that, it has a file that's called the module file, which some metadata declarations about this piece of this small pile of Puppet code that you've written, Puppet and Ruby. So it's a manifest that declares what's in this piece of ravioli, so to say. So you have those, and then there's a bunch of incremental builders that do stuff. I think I have another slide on that, so I'll do that there. There's some project wizards, help you set things up. And there's a streamline module publication and consumption to and from the Puppet Forge, where many of these modules live. So in the manifestator, you get things like syntax coloring, and you can set your own preferences. There's integrated fast validation. You see error markers, you can navigate to them, and things like that. There's opportunity to implement quick fixes. So we haven't done too many. I'm hoping also for contributions here to the project. You're welcome to jump in and do these. If there's a particular type of error, it's possible to write a little snippet of code that directs the editor how to correct that problem. If you misspelled something, it can then suggest and automatically correct that to the best matching suggestions and stuff like that. There's support for templates. You can write templates yourself and associate them with things in the grammar. And there's code completion. So you type half of the statement and you can get it to complete the rest. So that makes the learning experience a lot better, and it's easier to get started. The incremental builders, they run as you're editing or saving. It's reacting to different events. Of course, it validates the Puppet manifest so that they are syntactically correct, and it validates cross-references. So checks that the names of functions are the names of functions that actually exist in the environment, checks types and definitions, classes and parameters, and it understands the visibility as defined by the dependencies in the modules. Now that you're dealing with pieces as opposed to a whole, and you want to work with them as pieces and not construct a whole environment out of them, you have to rely on the information that is in the metadata that says that I rely on that common module because they're sitting next to each other, and you could have many different ones and they depend on each other in crosswise fashion. So it understands that. So it will show you that I don't know what this is, and you need to do something about it. Fix the dependencies in the metadata, or there's a function missing that you should have implemented. It validates the module file, so you have correct metadata, and it keeps the generated metadata in sync. So calculates checksums and produces lists of files and things like that. So you have everything complete at all times. The project wizards help you set things up rather than starting with a blank directory. The wizards help you. You can either create a new sort of empty structure, but there's lots of files there, or you can get a module directly from the Forge. And I'm happy that we got wired internet, so I hope that works in the demo. I can show you. Otherwise, it's an empty Puppet project. Or you can just start with an empty directory and start working on code you already have. There's also a specific export module to upload to the Forge, so it packages it in the format that the Forge likes to receive these. Now, Geppetto, it's packaged in all-in-one download, ready to use. You can just download it and run it. So it's there for Windows and Mac and Linux. It's integrated with SVN and Git. And we were debating whether we should put CVS up there, or if that's only for really old people. But if you happen to use CVS and you're too embarrassed to ask for it, it's there too. It's also available as Eclipse plugins. If you're already using Eclipse, you can just install the Geppetto features into your Eclipse runtime, combined it perhaps with the DLTK for Ruby. So you have a Ruby environment and Puppet environment at the same time. We also have a command line interface, an enhanced Puppet module tool to help you with what you need to do on the command line to interact with the Puppet Forge. And it's open source, it's in Apache, and naturally, since it's based on Eclipse, there's also code that is EPL. I think it's time for a demo. Okay, so here we have Geppetto started. We have no projects over here on the left, and we're not editing anything, it's just empty. All over, we have no problems, everything's fine, right? So let's start getting into some trouble here. So I'm gonna start by just creating a Puppet project. That is a module project. And I'm gonna name it demo and finish. And I now have a populated demo module project here. And what I see here is all the scaffolding I need in order to start working on this. So it generated a bunch of files like a README that is empty and so forth. Important piece here, the module file. It understands who I am, and it gave it a version and things like that. And I can now easily fill in the rest of the expected metadata here. Here's the metadata JSON that is the sort of binary or built result out of the metadata. So we could take a look at what's in here. So it has a list of all the files and checksums and things like that. So you take a look at the module file. You see checksum end with 2006 there. I'm going to write some. This is a description. And I'm saving it. And as I now look at the metadata, it is now recalculated the checksum. So if I add files or remove files and stuff like that, it'll keep this updated at all times. So that when I'm finished with working with this, I can just copy it out into the file system and use this module. Let's see. So we have lots of different things in here. So let's do something interesting. You see here it understands syntax. You get syntax coloring. You also see remember, no empty lines between comments and class definition, because then this is no longer documentation. It's then comments, and it understands that. So you can see that, oh, I have a blank line there, so I put it back, and then it paints it blue instead, because that's the documentation. And when it's documentation, it also understands like RDoc syntax. So if you want to have, you can see that what you've done, if it makes sense. And it understands things like that's a bullet. Oops, it's no longer documentation. Now it is again. This is the same bullet, but this is code. So it formats this. And if you like, you can set the fonts and all of these things. So you get very nice feedback. It can be difficult, RDoc, it can be difficult to use a language that is space dependent. Is it one space or two spaces? It's kind of hard to see, and you don't understand, and then the documentation comes out all funny, and you have to go back. Now you get feedback on some of the basic things and common mistakes. So if you want to, it knows about underlining and bold and stuff like that. All right? So we pretty much done with that, I think. It has an understanding of all the all the Ruby code that is here too. So if we have like parser functions, there's no functions here right now, but if I write the function here, and say new file, let's call it echo.ruby. And I had a little snippet here. So I have a function called, no, it was called debug. Let's call it echo instead. Like that. And now in my init, if I call something here, and I can now call echo hello. Everything's nice. No error markers. If I change this to debug, save it, I see an error marker. There's no function called unknown function echo. There's no such thing. So it keeps track of everything. It also understands like the Puppet runtime, and it's configurable. So it's set up with a particular Puppet version. It's possible to have multiple Puppet versions available, and you can switch between them. You don't have to have all those Puppet versions installed. So it creates a model out of all the Puppet code, and that's the model that it's used at runtime. So part of it is statically loaded, and part of it is dynamically loaded, as you saw here, whenever I save something. So it understands all those parts. So can correct that. Ooh. Okay. We have an outline here. It's not terribly interesting right now because we don't have very much in our system. We could take a look at some of the other common features here, like what you have under preferences. So syntax coloring, you can go here and change all the colors and fonts of all the various parts. There's also templates. So I can create templates that I associate with something. So if you often do a certain type of file resource, for instance, you can say that, or a type of definition. You can do a template for definitions. So add definition. And then I see everything inside the grammar. So when where I can write a definition, it should offer this template. So add definition. And then I put define. And then I say I want the name to go here. I want some parameters here. I can call it. And it should start there and there. And when I'm done editing in this template, I want to help the user by placing the cursor here, like so. And I did something wrong. Yes, like so. And now I have my little template. So we can apply that. So if I want to do a definition here, I can just press code complete, and I have all the things I can do here. And of course, there, add definition. So, and then it jumps to the first variable that I set, name. So my define hello, parameters, something like that, and then jump to where I'm now done with editing. So you can create these nice little snippets for yourself. So it's fast to do editing. I think that's about it in terms of general things. Well, you saw there's now things in the outline. Still no more interesting things here. Let's look at getting things from the module forge. Let's leave that here. And now I hope the network works. So file, new, and Puppet project from existing Forge module. And I'm clicking this and hoping that we have network access. And it's sending the bits over to the other side. I think we may have lost the connection. It's like that otherwise, and get the whole list. Okay, so close your eyes for switch workspace. So switching to, you have to imagine a list of named modules from the Forge appearing, and I then clicked on David Schmidt's common, and I now have common. And look, there's an error marker here. What's wrong with this? I have, you see down here, 6 errors, and I have a warning. Oh, it's using unknown stuff. Are there dependencies that aren't resolved? No. Module file has no error. So it has everything specified as it's specified to have, but there's things missing. And you can navigate to it. There's a debug function. Well, where was that supposed to come from? I better call David Schmidt. Is David Schmidt here, by the way? I just picked something. Where's the debug function supposed to come from? So, and you saw how we could repair that. You can write your own or create a new module here. I can add, since I now have let's see, did I call it echo or debug? Do you remember? I have echo RB down here. So, and it's called echo. Let's make a copy of this. All right, so now we have a debug. All right, so no, that didn't help. I still have the debug here. It still doesn't find that. Well, what I can do now, I can go to the module file and I can now say add a dependency. And if I added the dependency now to the other module, Henrik demo, and if I cross my fingers, this should now be all validated. And you see the bug disappeared. I no longer have that problem. The bug is fine. I now have another function called error for error. And you repeat the process. So now I took on the responsibility here of providing the missing things here in my own module, and I corrected the module file or made it different. I should really talk to David Schmidt and hear what he intended. Maybe I need some other modules. Maybe I need to read the documentation and figure out how it's intended to work, and then I can repair it. Okay, so now I ended up with 2 modules here, and I've changed them a little bit, and now if I want to share them, I can do that in a couple of different ways. You might want to use them in your production, so now they're in here in this Geppetto tool. Where are they? Well, they're in the file system, of course, but you may want to have them in a particular format as a zip or something else. So there's export functionality here, so you can do export. And there's a number of general ways to export things as an archive file or directly to the file system if you're brave, right into your environment and then do a run of it and things like that. But there's also a specific export for the modules, export modules, and which goes directly just to a place in the file system, and it's all packaged up, so it can then be sent off to the Forge. I think that is pretty much what I intended to demo. So I think this is a good time to take any questions that relate to this. I have some other slides, and after the demo, if there's something you want to see. Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering, you kind of did this
Yes?
Is that not done automatically if it defines your classes? Is it not done kind of module-wise?
Yes, if all the modules are in the same place, right? So when you, in your environment, when you set everything up, you have a path that Puppet uses to find things. And if everything is on that path, it works just fine, right? As you said, it will find everything. So if I had changed this to copy my demo module inside the other one, then it would have worked. Then it would have found it immediately and there would be no error. But now we're creating these individual pieces. And we want to make sure that this individual piece is correctly specified in terms of dependencies, so that when someone else is using it, they understand all the other additional things that they need, right? So that's why it flagged that and helped me to correct that metadata. But you're right, it would have worked if I just plunked it in and everything else was there. Yes?
How much is this tied to Eclipse? I myself, the IntelliJ user. Would it be possible to write a plugin for IntelliJ or some other IDE?
It would be possible, but these are using the Eclipse framework, so not possible to reuse much of what is written in terms of code. Sorry. There is a Mercurial for Eclipse. You can plug that in. Geppetto is just like Eclipse. You can plug anything in. So you can plug in Mercurial support. Multiple Puppet version support. Not easily. There's no UI in this version for it. There will be, under preferences, it will say target platform. And you can then import a target platform, either from an installed Puppet version. That's how I created the one that I have. And what it will give you a file. And that file describes everything that is in that Puppet in terms of types and functions and what have you. That file you can then share with others. So when you import, you can import a target definition either from an installed distribution of Puppet or from such a file. Here I would need to copy it into a particular location. So it's, I show you the magic. It's not that fantastic, but so in the navigator, oh, it doesn't show up here. Oh yeah, Org Cloudsmith Geppetto Puppet target platform target, and I look inside it. Oops, there's a Puppet 2640 PPTP file. And this file, I wonder what happened. Yep, all right, so it's a model in XMI format that it reads, okay? So everything from Puppet 264 is in there. There's editors for it even, so if you like to write one by hand, you can. That would be crazy. I think I missed a few hands.
Does the Git interface support branching and merging back into the Git repository?
Yes, yes it does. So you can push and push things, pull things. You have full history. You can do compare. There's a local history. You can compare. So you can do things like compare with local history. Oh, right. I didn't have any. And I didn't start from Git, but otherwise I can compare with Git things. It's just not there right now. But you have, I can show you afterwards if you like. So there's the Eclipse Git project with a full user interface for Git, for comparing and merging and merge handling and see histories and everything.
Tagging.
Sorry?
Tagging.
Tagging as well. It's a very long list of functions. I can show you. I'll prepare that. We'll take another question.
Is there a way, possibility of importing existing Git checkouts of Puppet?
Yes. I can just check out anything from Git, and since it really understands what the PP file is, manifests, and it understands Ruby files that are organized the Puppet ways under Puppet lib, parser functions and types and things like that. So it understands them in a very special way, looking at the new function and new parameter and things like that. It understands all of that. And so it knows about all those things. So that's, yes. It's done for 3.6. It might work. We haven't tried.
When you create a new model, is there a way to have a custom layout of the model, a sort of a custom scaffolder for a new model?
You'd like to have some other files and stuff. You would need to do it's done by code right now in the project wizard. It wouldn't be too hard to copy it from somewhere else or unzip or import some templates or things like that. With a little bit of coding, it would be very easy to add.
Does it understand ext lookup spacing variables or spacing definition?
Yes, it just as it linked functions, it will link definitions. In Puppet code, I showed you between Puppet and Ruby, but it does it, of course, with the Puppet code as well. So if you're using a definition that doesn't exist, or if you have a parameter that doesn't exist, I can show that. It understands all that the same way. Oh yeah, yes. You can just do a blank project. File, new, project, general one. This is just a project, my project. It doesn't understand anything about Puppet. If I put Puppet code into this, it doesn't react at all to it. But if I turn on, add the Puppet project nature to it, it will now also understand a Puppet file in here. So if I create one, new file, something.pp, this is now like that. And I can refer to something like so. And it understands Puppet just like that. So you can organize things any way you like. You can check out your projects. If it contains Puppet code and you turned on that it should understand Puppet code in this project, then it works just fine. So let me show you. And of course, it understands things like this. So I can say B. And it validates if I change this to something else. It now tells me that B is no longer valid because there's no B. So.
How much of this is done with kind of bespoke tooling that you've written that understands Puppet grammar? And are you reusing the existing Lexer and Parser that exists in the Puppet project, or?
No.
Okay.
So this is done with JRuby parser. It's written in Java. It parses the Ruby code, looks at various pieces, and understands that. It's also written with a different grammar tool. It's called Antler. And it works a different way, and it's better suited for interactive editing because of the way the grammar is constructed and how it deals with things like error recovery. So it's not like error near line 1, bailing out, goodbye. You don't like that when you're editing. You like to see as many errors as possible, and so it needs to be different, unfortunately. You can't catch all the errors. We have time for one or two more questions. I was going to show Git also, yes.
Does it do formatting?
Yes, it does formatting too. I haven't tested it all that much. You're welcome to log issue reports when it does funny things to your code. And there were some, I saw recently, excellent best practices shown published on the Puppet Labs wiki with some rules for how things should be formatted and what you should and shouldn't do. So I thought that was really great. It's possible to implement lots of those rules and have a check for those. Maybe they're not errors, but they're warnings. Like we have a warning down here that we've been, like unrecognized escape sequence. So it warns about things like that. There's lots of things, warnings if you use like old style references, and it tells you you should really capitalize the first letter and stuff like that. And then that's what I talked about earlier, quick fixes. For every error or warning, it's possible to associate a quick fix with it. So it's possible to help users repair things very quickly. Very briefly, just if you went with Git installed, you have lots of things under your team menu, committing, fetching, and doing pretty much everything you can do with Git from within the environment, which is very, very nice. You don't have to mess around on the command line when you don't want to. Could you say again? Yes. Yes, that could be used that way. So it'd be interesting to switch between target platforms and see a delta in terms of error. So if you're clean when you start and you switch target platform, the list at the bottom here will show you all the things that are broken in that version. Okay. Yeah. Yes, it's possible. It's possible to do. All right. I think we're done with questions. I didn't forget anything, I think, in terms of what I promised to show? No? Okay. So switching back to presentation here. All right, so demo. How can you contribute? Well, oops, I got this in the wrong order. Let's skip one and then come back to it. So how can you contribute? The project is at GitHub, so Cloudsmith Geppetto. And if you're using Eclipse already, there's an update site you can go to if you want to install it directly into your Eclipse. It's all updated. We've just pushed a release candidate for the 1.0 release yesterday, so it's brand new. There's downloads, so if you go to the first URL there's a downloads button and you can download the thing for your environment.
Yesterday the link for Eclipse was not working.
This one? Yesterday, yeah, so we were doing all this work yesterday, deleting things and updating, so it should work today. So, you managed to download yesterday?
Yesterday. Download 0, then I downloaded
Okay, so you downloaded 1.0?
yes.
Okay. Well, all this was taking place yesterday, and it was pretty late until everything was correct, so I can announce it now. It's supposed to work. So if it doesn't work now, I'll go spank someone that should have done something that they didn't. All right? All right. I have a cable up here. Well, it didn't work, so I forgot. And there you have the address to the Forge and where some other things. Okay. I wanted to touch on this subject before I end, too. As we've been dealing with this, we've seen how the Forge works, and We dealt with modules, but there's more to say around collaborating. And we have some ideas around the Forge. There's a breakout session this afternoon called Puppet in the Clouds, where this is one of the topics. So if you're interested in what I'm about to talk about, please join us, and it's going to be part presentation, but mostly a discussion of what you would like to see being done around Puppet in the Clouds. What we like to see around the Forge is a full set of support for a full set of use cases. Right now, you can easily get things if you have internet. You get the module, you copy it somewhere and start using it. But how do you update it? That's not so obvious. You can download it again, but then you have to do all the comparison of what has changed and merge it into your code base yourself. We think there should be a difference between like installing and using and more ways of interacting with it. What if you repair and modify? How do you deal with that? Where should you put that? And then sharing, contributing back. It doesn't really do all of these things. It does a couple of them and a little bit, and the rest is manual work. We also think that in order for this to be really successful and not break under complexity, as everyone is raising their hands when they're using modules and writing modules and contributing, there's things that needs to be done to make this work really well. And we have some really good experience with using this like in the Eclipse world with OSGI and components and modular design. And there's a couple of things that are missing, and having the notion of a group, so you can define a version lineup of things. I'm using these modules of these versions and have that declared as dependencies. Also the notion of fragments. And I've seen this in modules that are written, that they have declared dependencies on the major parts of the functionality. But then you have to go and read the documentation and that says that if you're also using the extended functionality of such and such a thing, then you also need to install. And that's not declared anywhere in any metadata. So it's not possible to validate and check that you have all these things. You have to look at the documentation at best, or worst case, it's in the code only, and you have to understand that you were supposed to do something else. And the reason people do that is because they don't want to burden the main component that they have, the base functionality, with these extra things that you would also need to download and have just in order to satisfy this dependency. So if you can compose it as a main component with some extras on it that you don't really depend on, but you can include them in your configuration. So these two go hand in hand. So I have a configuration that says that these are my main things, and here's the bunch of extra options that I want to have. And then all the metadata between them is properly defined, and it's possible to do all the validation on them. There's also the notion of private versus exported. What if you write a module and you have some very specific functions? You don't want to maintain them in the long run, and you really don't want people to use them. We heard Luke talk about everything should be open and you should be able to change everything. That's great, but if that's not the intention, you should be able to specify that it's not your intention that things should be used. Go ahead and use them, but be warned that this is like internal API. So there should be some declarations like that that helps people avoid being burnt in the future. We'd like to see some improved dependency management and support. Like if you install a module, it should really get all its dependencies as well, if that is what you want. Now you have to go and look at and follow all these links and download them piece by piece. And one problem is it only gives you the latest version. If you have a version and a newer version was pushed, you can't again download the old version. Or if there were 5 versions and you just want to bump it like one level up and not go to 2.0 when you're on 1.0, for instance, that's also an issue. Because people will be depending on what was there before. So that's also important to solve. There's no versions ranges. You can just write dependencies in terms of equal, less, or greater, but not a range. I work with everything version 1 up to version 2, but not anything beyond that. So I'd like to see that. And we like to see all the Forge stuff based on using a repository. But that would solve many of the problems, like using Git and GitHub to share things would make this a lot easier. All right, so more discussion about this in the breakout. And that's about it. Thank you.